All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Military Working Group meeting. Today is September 11th, 2023, and my name is Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel from the City of El Cajon. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Would you join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin today, I'd like to ask our clerk, Tessa, to confirm if we have a quorum.
Good morning. Yes, we do have a quorum for this meeting.
Great. Thank you, Tessa. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize a colleague of mine in the audience, Councilmember Mike Donovan from the City of Coronado. We served together on another agency board, but Councilmember, welcome and thank you for coming. Okay, before we begin with our agenda items, I'd like to review the meeting process for both working group members as well as the members of the public who would like to participate. For working group members, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and I'll call on you by name. And for members of the public on public comments, Tessa, would you provide a reminder on how those work?
For public commenters, as noted on the cover of today's agenda, all live comments may be provided during today's meeting, either in person or virtually. If you're here in the room, please submit a speaker slip to me prior to the item. And if you're a member of the public on Zoom, please raise your hand when the item is finished being presented. We call on members of the public in person first and then virtually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tessa. Do any members of the working group have any questions before we continue? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 1, which is public comments, communications member comments. Do we have any comments from the public?
We have no non-agenda public comments.
Okay, great, thank you. At this time, do any members of the working group have any comments or questions about the agenda? Anything else before we continue? Nope, seeing none. All right, move on. Item number 2 of approval of the meeting minutes. The military working group needs to approve the minutes from the May 8th, 2023 military working group meeting. You do not have to have been at that meeting to approve the minutes. Your voting is just merely to approve that the clerk took accurate minutes of that meeting. So if somebody would like to make a motion for approving those minutes, I'll take the motion at this time. Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second, thank you. And you have those. Okay, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, all those abstain. All right, that passes unanimously.
And for the record, there were no public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 3, Chair's report. 9/11 obviously is a very momentous day in our country's history. It seems almost yesterday, but not quite yesterday, but it was 22 years ago now, which is a long time, more than 2 decades. And it's appropriate, at least we remember the significance of this day, the sacrifices, the bravery, the courage of the firefighters, the first responders, the policemen who went into the towers that day. We appreciate their sacrifices. We remember their families. But it's also a day that we resolved to strengthen our country's protection of its citizens, which you all have a part in doing, and I appreciate that. It's quite a noble thing that you all spend your day protecting the public in each your own way. And so on behalf of the public, I'd like to say thank you for what you do. And that's appropriate on this day as well, that we recognize your contributions to keeping us safe. So thank you. Any members like to make any comments about today? Anything personal or? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Let's see, alternate voting members. The military working group's charter allows for 1 or more alternate voting members for each voting jurisdiction. If you would like to add any alternate members, please reach out to April or to Emily and just let them know who you would like to be your alternate in case you can't be here meetings. Sound good? Next, the update on the departure of the SANDAG CEO. I'm sure you've heard in the news recently that Mr. Akrada is leaving the agency at the end of December. And so the board is in process of trying to create a process for finding a new CEO. Many elements of the plan continue regardless of who's in the CEO's position. We are required as an agency to update the 2021 Regional Transportation Plan every 4 years. So right now, the SANDAG staff is working on updating the 2025 plan. And that's required so that the agency and the county can receive federal and state matching funds. In order to have those funds, we have to have an approved regional transportation plan. So that continues to move on, kind of a train already moving in its momentum. And certainly it's a very big task that our staff here at SANDAG is well-versed and expert and professional in getting that done. So we look forward to their continued momentum in getting us to that point. Legislative updates. The Lausanne Rail Corridor, Senator Blake Spears' subcommittee on Lausanne Rail Corridor Resiliency held their second hearing last week and discussed stabilization work in San Clemente, the benefits of the Lausanne Rail Corridor, and future threats to the Lausanne Rail Corridor and federal and state investment in the corridor. That's the update on that particular item. Before we move on to the next item, Clerk, do we have any public comments for the chair's report?
Thank you. There are no public comments on item 3.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is member and military updates. This is a chance where you all get to present updates on your projects and programs within the jurisdiction of the military working group. And we thought we'd set a time where you can just basically say, here's what we're working on, here's what we're excited about, here's what's forward thinking and forward acting. And so if you've got something that you're working on you think would be pertinent to the group, we'd love to hear about what's going on in your world right now. So anybody want to kick us off with something? JJ.
Good morning, all. So just 3 items, 2 are events. The first one is on the 20th of September. Camp Pendleton will be conducting a ceremony for its 81st year inception back in 1942. So that should be that's pretty significant for the installation, what it's been able to provide in terms of national security over the years. One big one for down here in San Diego, the 22nd to the 24th of September, is the Miramar Air Show, open and free to the public. So that should, coming off of COVID, that should be a relatively big show, and it's done on behalf of the military for the public. So looking forward to great participation there. From a project standpoint, the last one I'd like to throw out there is the installation Camp Pendleton. We're currently partnered with the California Energy Commission and put forth a grant application with the Department of Energy for a long duration energy storage project. So the grant is $50 million. Total project cost will be $191 million. And what that will site on Camp Pendleton is a 245 megawatt hour battery system, new technology, so non-lithium ion. So the point there, really what it does for us, it provides a level of energy security and resilience where we'll be able to power our air station on that installation indefinitely, but it also will help through CalISO balance the grid in times of instability and provide on-demand power to San Diego County when needed. So standing by for any questions you may have.
That's a great project because we're going to need every kilowatt hour we can get as we go forward for.
Yeah, we're expecting to hear back this month from DOE. We did a 2-hour pre-selection interview with them back in July. And it's, you know, I'm very positive about the project, but they seem very interested and very enthused. So we'll see what they come back with.
That's great work. Thank you. Anybody else want to offer? Yes, Anna.
Good morning. I'm Anna Shepard. I have a few updates. First, just staffing. I'm the new Navy Region Southwest Region CPLO. Muska Like is the Deputy Region CPLO. We'll both be holding down the fort for Naval Base Point Loma and Naval Base Coronado until those positions are filled. And then another kind of exciting topic I wanted to give you an update on is the application that the Navy coordinated with the Port of San Diego and the California Coastal Conservancy. We submitted an expression of interest for a sentinel landscape designation for San Diego Bay and for the Tijuana River Valley. Sentinel landscapes are a partnership between the Department of the Interior and the Department of Defense. And the goal is to better coordinate efforts and funding to achieve mutual goals. We worked with a lot of partners on this application beyond the kind of the three core ones, including City of Imperial Beach, California State Parks, NOAA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and all of the installations around the bay, and of course the port. We also have reached out to all of the jurisdictions around the bay in hopes of bringing them into the partnership. We're really optimistic that we're going to be invited back to submit a full application. They will make full announcements in April of 2024. So everyone cross fingers. We have been told that this will make us more competitive for federal funding in the future. And it also allows the partnership to hire a landscape coordinator to go after those grants and help us all coordinate better. I think we all know it's a heavy lift, just getting meetings together and all of the coordination that we do. So we want to make sure that we get credit for the work that we're already doing. I also wanted to just give a quick update. We had some successful public scoping meetings for our third carrier environmental impact statement process that is ongoing right now. We held a series of 3 public meetings in Barrio Logan, Imperial Beach, and Coronado over the summer. Most of our attendance was at the city of Coronado, not surprisingly. This was the public scoping meeting, so chance for the public to give input on how we scope the environmental analysis for the infrastructure necessary for the third carrier. Most of the comments, as you can imagine, were around housing and traffic. So no surprises, but we're glad that we're kind of aligned in our thoughts on how to proceed with the NEPA analysis. I'm going to turn it over to Muska Like. She has some updates from Naval Base Point Loma that I think would be interesting for the group. Over to you, Muska.
Good morning, Muska Like again, Deputy Regional Community Plans and Liaison Officer for Navy Region Southwest. I wanted to provide a quick update on Naval Base Point Loma Old Town Campus NAVOR Revitalization Project. I know a lot of you are familiar with the project, but for those who may not be, the Navy is currently in the process of conducting an environmental impact statement to analyze 5 action alternatives and 1 no action alternative for the potential redevelopment of Navy's 70-acre site on Naval Base Point Loma Old Town Campus, or the effort as commonly known as NAVOR Revitalization. The project is needed for Navy to provide NAVOR with safe and secure facilities to be able to conduct their cybersecurity mission efficiently. Currently, the facilities that the NAVOR site is residing on are beyond their service life. In response to public and agency comments received during the Navy's draft EIS requesting additional details, the Navy decided to work with a potential master developer who can assist with the development of a more site-specific details before a final alternative is selected if the Navy finalizes its environmental analysis process. In November 2022, the Navy issued a competitive solicitation requests for qualification and proposal. The Navy received a number of proposals, and in April of this year, 2023, the Navy shortlisted 4 potential master developers that advanced to provide a request for their proposal based on submitted qualifications. These 4 shortlisted potential developers had approximately 4 months to prepare their proposal to include technical and financial information and let us know how they were going to achieve Navy's requirements. On August 9th, the Navy of this year, the Navy received proposals from 4 potential developers and currently in the process of evaluating those 4 proposals. The next step for the Navy is to select one of those potential developers as the master developer by the end of this calendar year, 2023, and then we will enter into a period of exclusive negotiations. For those who are interested about the evaluation criteria that the Navy used, there is a long list and it's all available in the solicitation and amendment section on sam.gov. I do have the notice ID for anyone interested. Please reach out. I'll be here till the end of the meeting and I can provide you that. For more information on the project background and most up-to-date information, we always encourage everyone to visit the project website. It's navor-revitalization.com. Thank you.
Muska has been very busy out visiting a lot of community planning groups and other interested groups, providing a lot of information. So we're trying to be very engaged with the community on this. Thanks, Muska.
Okay, thanks, Anna. Anything else? Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Amy Heim. It's been a bit since I've been here. So for those that don't know me, I'm here representing the Port of San Diego today. I just have 2 quick things. The first is I would like to second what Anna said about that Sentinel landscape application. It was a major lift. And I think it sets us up for a really productive partnership in the future. So thank you. And we look forward to continuing to work with you. The other thing I have is our board meets tomorrow, and they will be asked to consider the lease transfer for 1220 Pacific Highway. This has been a long time coming. This has been like a 20-year conversation. And it's taken a lot of work, both from regional Navy and from big Navy in DC. So I just want to say thank you for being a partner in this. We're really, really looking forward to exploring what can happen with that parcel. So thank you, Reg.
Thanks, Amy.
Hey, just quickly from MCRD San Diego, I'm Jim Gurney, the community liaison for the depot. First of all, we're neighbors of Navor, full support for what you guys are doing there. I think it's going to be a great boon for the area, and look forward to kind of tracking how SANDAG is working closely with the Navy on overall transportation infrastructure in the area and what impacts we might have there. We have we're doing pretty well with recruiting in the Marine Corps. We'll make mission this year. And what that means for us is we have a regular inflow of men and women into the depot to train, about 17,000 or so a year. That has some issues with the local infrastructure, but we also graduate that number, from our depot, and that brings in 5 to 6 times that number of visitors and loved ones every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday when we do those graduations. So things can get clogged up in the area there with additional work. We just want to make sure that SANDAG's kind of working closely to take care of that. 2 years ago, MCRD San Diego had celebrated its centennial anniversary, had been around for 100 years, great partnership with San Diego. This year, we actually celebrate 100 years of recruit training. So we've trained about 1.5 million, new Marines at MCRD San Diego. We've had several events with that. And again, just want to express our gratitude to the community of San Diego for being great partners. A number of projects coming up within the confines of MCRD that I don't think, or at least we don't intend them to have any impact on the larger area, but up to $200 million worth of construction projects that are going to take place within the depot over the next 2 to 3 years. And I know if anybody drives around the depot, we've had a security perimeter fencing project that's been going on for a while, closing down some of Barnett and some other roads. But bear with us. That'll be over pretty quickly, and we'll move on from that. But just want to say thanks for everything you guys do.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the updates. Before we go to a SANDAG presentation, anybody else? Going. Okay. As part of this particular agenda item, we're going to have Cecily Taylor, a SANDAG staff member, present an update on the 2025 regional plan. We had talked about that earlier, so we thought we'd give you an update on what's going on. Cecily.
Yes, thank you. So just to share a little bit more information about where we are, what we've been working on with that 2025 regional plan. Over the past few months, we've held 2 joint working groups to focus on the regional plan. So thank you to any of you who may have attended those and were able to participate and give us your feedback. We've also been holding workshops with the board so that we can share information and seek their input on the projects, policies, programs, how to fund the plan, all sorts of topics related to that regional plan development. We've also been hearing from the public. We've done some in-person workshops over the past few weeks. We have 3 more this month, one in North County this week, East County next week, and then there'll be one online workshop focused on unincorporated county towards the end of the month. And we've had an online comment tool open that will remain active through the end of September. And we welcome all of you to use that, share it with your communities. And we're using that tool to hear what are the public's mobility needs throughout the region, any project ideas, and you can also see what other people have suggested and sort of give it the thumbs up if you agree. So far, we've received over 1,700 public comments, and we've also gotten lots of feedback from our partners, of course. So now is really the time to share any new ideas you have, because we'll be using all of this information, pairing it with historic and projected data of the demographics throughout the region to develop that initial set of projects, programs, and policies that will make up our 2025 regional plan. We want to develop a plan that supports our regional goals, that can meet those state and federal laws so that SANDAG and the region can be eligible for that critical funding. So please use that comment tool, share it, and please take these next couple of weeks to give us those ideas, because now is really the best time for us to incorporate them in that initial network. So more to come. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Cecily? Before you go, I've got a question, but any questions from the committee? No. So go ahead.
How are you incorporating military employment data into the planning process?
Yeah, we definitely do consider the military bases as employment centers. I did try to get a little bit more information on this. I can follow up if you need more detail, but I think it looks like we use mostly just what's available through census data or other kind of data that we would have for any region throughout the region. But if there is any specific data, job counts or personnel counts that you are able to share, that would definitely be a big help for us to make sure that our assumptions are as accurate as possible.
I think some of the briefing books that we did a couple of years ago might have that information that we worked on with SANDAG.
Oh, okay.
So follow-up question, Anna's question is, when we have carriers, for example, in port, those are fluctuations in populations that for a city our size is significant. So for the planning process, what level of population do you assume when you have multiple ships?
Yeah, I'd have to connect with the data team and follow up on that one. But I know that in general, our activity-based model is attempting to capture what is a typical weekday. So in terms of the population we assume, and in terms of the types of trips that we're assuming, we are trying to capture that typical weekday event.
Great, thanks.
If I could offer real quick, SDMAC does a great job with putting out a military economic impact report every year, and it has pretty comprehensive data on civilian and military employment in the area.
Excellent, thank you.
So why don't you mention once again where members of the group can submit comments or questions?
Yes, our website, it's featured definitely on our homepage. I believe it's sandag.gov/regional plan. And if you're following our social media, there's been lots of advertising of the workshops and that online comment tool. You can find that either on our website or social media.
So there's like a button that says submit comments or weigh in or something?
It's so in terms of general comments, there's an email regionalplan@sandag.gov .org. And in terms of the online comment tool, it's a map. So you can navigate throughout and identify the particular facilities or particular area that you want to say, hey, this is an issue I have here, or this is an idea I think you should consider. So you can find both.
So regionalplan@sandag.org is a fast way to get a question answered, perhaps, or help or something.
Yeah, I don't know, April, if you can help. I think it's sandag.org/regionalplan would be the website.
Right.
Mhm.
But an email address, if somebody says, hey, I have a question, I'm stuck on this page.
Yes, that's right.
Regionalplan@sandag.org.
Yeah, we'll email it out to everybody.
We'll email it out to all the members.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
I always like to have that backup, I just got a question. Can I just not have to move through pages? Can I just email somebody kind of a thing? Okay. Thank you very much, Cecily.
Thank you.
Tessa, any comments from the public on this item?
There are no public comments on this item.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's move on to the next item, item number 5. Airport transit connection. Ryan, you've from SANDAG staff, you've got some probably really good information on something that's interesting to a lot of us.
See here. Yeah, good morning. So I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak with you about the airport transit connection. This project's about delivering fast, efficient, direct transit to the airport. Today, I want to present the findings of a concept study that we've done that we shared with the SANDAG board back in July. It shows that we have a transit project to the airport that's feasible, fundable, and will achieve significant state and federal policy goals related to long-term sustainability. And we believe this transportation project benefits the whole region, will provide mobility options to get to and around the airport, benefiting both transit riders and those who want to get to the airport by car. Here's an overview of what I want to talk about. I want to tell you about the concept study, some of the background on how that process evolved. Then I'd like to share with you some of the key findings and next steps to advance this project through the development process. And most importantly, I just want to hear what your thoughts are. We really do believe we can bring this thing forward and really deliver something for the region. What do we know? The airport's going to grow. With this growth, travel in and around the airport's going to get more constrained. Trip times are going to increase. But we feel that, the projects that we've identified here could reduce roadway travel times by 20%, in addition to providing that transit alternative. We also are looking at an opportunity here where there are unprecedented state and federal funding opportunities for infrastructure like this, especially when it's coupled with strong regional partnerships. We here in San Diego can be very competitive for those funding sources. At the direction of the Airport Connectivity Subcommittee, which was a subcommittee made up of the SANDAG board back in 2018 and 19, we studied 3 different modes of travel to get to the airport with the transit connection. An automated people mover system, or APM. You guys love good acronyms, so APM is a new one. The trolley, a trolley extension, and enhanced bus service. APM systems are very common throughout the world for airport connections, both on airport and off. They provide fast, frequent, high-capacity service, very reliable. The vehicles are kind of low floor, where you can kind of pull luggage or push a baby stroller, that kind of, wide open, low floor kind of vehicle that you can move around in. That tends to be very favorable for airport applications. As I said, we also looked at an extension of our existing trolley system. We're all familiar with that. These vehicles are, configured more for, ordinary transit, and less for airport applications. They don't have quite the same, maneuverability inside the cars, and the room for passengers and luggage. Also, the service frequency is kind of based on the existing system. You know, the existing system operations kind of constrain how fast you can, you know, and often you can run those vehicles. Bus service, we looked at, these would operate on existing roadways, but we would look to improve the transit times by putting these buses in bus-only lanes, converting general purpose lanes to bus-only lanes, and then providing signal priority to, you know, allow them to move around a little faster. We'll take a deeper look at each of the concepts. This is the trolley concept that we considered. It would operate on new service from Hawthorne Street from the main line to the airport, but it would operate on the existing trolley main line between the 12th and Imperial Station and Hawthorne, where it breaks off to go, you know, north, first to Harbor Drive and then up into the airport. Utilizing a transit-ready area that the airport has made available to us. Connections to bus and trolley would all be made at Santa Fe Depot with additional connections at 12th and Imperial. You know, we looked at 5 different alternative concepts for APM systems. This map integrates each of these concepts. The dash lines show connections that we, you know, looked at. We studied, you know, to the Civic Core, to the Convention Center, to the existing Old Town Transit Center. 2 of these options only go north, either to the rental car facility or to the Old Town Transit Center. 3 of the options go north and south, with the southern route ending at either Santa Fe Depot, the Convention Center, or the downtown Civic Core. Each of the concepts have an optional station at Harbor Island, and the southern routes include an optional station at the County Administration Center. It's important to note that the north and south routes could be funded and constructed either as individual phases of a single project or as 2 or more standalone projects. As many of you may know, LAX is working to bring an APM people mover system to LAX. You know, the difference with our proposal is that our concepts connect the airport directly to the regional transit system, including Amtrak. That means LA, Orange County, and San Diego County, basically all of Southern California, will have a 1-seat Amtrak ride directly to this airport connector. You know, to understand that southern option, we also looked at a southern-only APM connection that would connect trolley, LoSan, and all of our local and regional buses at Santa Fe Depot. It would then connect, continue on to either the Civic Core or Convention Center. You know, we really liked this concept. We believe it's financially feasible. It was, you know, really came in well on cost, and it really serves transit riders, which is consistent with our regional plan goals. In contrast, the northern route serves car rental users, kiss and ride passengers at a potential transit center up at the port site, and trolley passengers connecting at that transit center. A north leg would require additional investments to connect Amtrak and Coaster. And the NCTD has expressed some concerns formally through a letter that we received that there would be, you know, some system concerns with adding an additional stop between the existing Santa Fe Depot and Old Town stops. So that's something that we would have to, of course, explore further. Because it has more robust connections to other regional transit options, we really believe the southern leg would serve more transit riders, using the system to get from all over the region to get to the airport. A southern leg would also help further the 2021 regional plan goals to significantly increase transit ridership. The final concept that we studied was enhanced bus service. These images show the 2 existing bus routes serving the airport, the MTS 992 route and the Airport Authority operated San Diego Flyer. These concepts propose keeping the same routes, but, you know, converting general purpose lanes to bus only lanes and then using traffic signal priority to help speed up the system. The next slides highlight some of the key performance findings for these concepts. We'll start with ridership. This slide compares the projected ridership of each concept, but it's important to keep in mind that there are different types of riders that would use these systems. The green bars show passengers that would be utilizing this connection to get picked up or dropped off from a port headquarters site before heading on to the airport. The purple bars show people that would be making a connection from the rental car center. So these are people traveling from the airport to either go pick up a rental car or dropping off a rental car to get to the airport. And we want to focus on the blue bars. These are the transit riders. These are the people who are using the broader regional transit system to access the airport connection. These transit riders are really what drive the regional plan goals regarding sustainability, transit use, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. We know this is, increasing transit ridership is a key metric that would put us in a competitive position to really go after that state and federal funding. And as you can see, that Southern APM captures the most transit riders. Another big, driver for this, this project is going to directly benefit the airport and the airport's almost 9,400 workers. As you can see, the darker colors show the greatest density of airport workers in the region. If we get a project that connects to downtown or area south, many of these airport workers are really going to have a much easier transit option to be able to get to their jobs. This would save a lot of time for those employers or those employees and eliminate the need for some of them to drive to work. Another issue that we wanted to flag, when considering how to best improve access to the airport, we have to think about the potential impacts of these projects. For example, one of the issues with the trolley concept is gate downtime on intersections as that trolley main line threads its way through our downtown urban core. A trolley extension to the airport would impact 8 specific at-grade crossings through downtown. This graphic just looks at 3 of them located in the Little Italy area that we felt were representative. As you can see, when you add that new trolley service, you're adding more and more trains through that congested rail corridor. That's all at grade. With that additional gate downtime, you do have, pretty significant negative traffic issues created in our downtown core. Our goal with this project is to improve access to the airport and reduce and decrease traffic congestion. Unfortunately, there's an unintended consequence of the trolley in that, if you add those additional trains, that gate downtime is going to go up to approximately 30 to 35 minutes every hour. So where the gates are down more than they're up. That is going to potentially increase traffic congestion. Of course, one of the most important considerations is always cost. The table on this slide shows a high and low estimate for each of the concepts. These are early preliminary estimates, and so there's a lot of uncertainty, but this is our first glimpse at what those cost estimates would be. The graph shows that the APM concept with elevated configurations is much more affordable than the tunneling. The trolley is largely at grade and elevated, but would have some tunneling and excavation as it approaches the airport and where it needs to go down and cross underneath the existing low sand tracks to get from the east side of low sand, down through Hawthorne to be able to come up towards the airport. Here's where we really looked at those tunneling options. Tunneling is great. It does reduce visual impact. But as you can see, we had to adjust the y-axis of this graph to, show that, tunneling just costs a lot more. And so that's kind of why we've really looked at the elevated ideas as being a little bit more affordable. Talking about funding, We're already off to a great start with our partnership with the Airport Authority. They have executed an MOU setting aside, more than $300 million in local fundings as a local funding source to make this project happen. And, we're excited about the opportunity to be able to bring more money into the San Diego region. Right now, this airport connection would be eligible for federal DOT New Starts funding, which out of the gate gives us a really great advantage. SANDAG has an excellent track record of securing state and federal funding for our projects and then delivering them on time and budget. And we are excited. We think we could continue that trend with this project. The pie chart here, though, shows the funding mix that we used for the recently completed Midcoast project. As you can see on the right, we're contemplating a similar type funding mix for this project. There's a significant amount of information in the technical study, and we urge you to take the time to understand the findings and to follow up with any questions you may have. We do believe that this study makes clear that there is a prime opportunity to move this transit connection forward and to address a growing problem before it gets worse. In particular, that South Leg APM option, we believe has real benefits and is financially feasible and something we can actually get done here in San Diego. The local commitment to this project is as strong as ever. The funding opportunities are coming into alignment. And, we believe we have identified a, project that's going to have real meaningful benefit to the region. Critically, we'd also like to get this project into the environmental phase so that we can understand more and more about the, technical, the technical understanding of the project. And most critically, by getting it into that environmental process, we can really get started in earnest, starting to pursue those state and federal funding opportunities and to really take maximum advantage of the historic availability of infrastructure funding, both in California and nationwide. And so, looking ahead, we're going to be spending the next few months continuing to meet with our stakeholders. We met with the Airport Authority Board, or we presented before the Airport Authority Board last week, continuing to present the findings of the study, gather input. And then later in the fall, we'd like to return to the SANDAG board, provide them with an update, and then get this project this year into environmental review. And so with that, I'm here to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. That's a very comprehensive presentation of a big project in 15 minutes, so well done. Thanks for the information. Before we get to member comments, let's see if we have any public comments on this item.
I have no public comments on item 5.
Okay, member comments. Anybody have any questions about how this might interact with their properties or locations?
So it looks like from what I see, the southern option is the recommended option from SANDAG. If you incorporated a northern option, I saw the pathway that went from the Old Town site to the rental car site. Was that an elevated automated people mover that goes along Pacific Coast Highway there?
Yes.
Okay.
Is the entire automated people mover concept elevated?
We looked at options to make it elevated and to put it underground. What we learned is, it's not a big surprise, that putting it underground just costs a lot more. You can definitely do it. There's nothing stopping us from doing it. It just costs more money.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Has there been thought to, or was the cost of like maintenance facility, the rolling stock for an APM considered in those charts?
Because we have not selected an APM technology, we did not include the cost of rolling stock because we didn't know what rolling stock we'd be looking to, purchase for the system. So that's not included. Also not included is real estate and right-of-way acquisition. At the concept level, you're talking about 1% to 3% design. We didn't feel like we had studied it in depth enough to really understand those impacts so that we would identify the real estate and be able to price it. So that would have to be figured out in the environmental stage.
One more question. Have you taken a look at how automated people movers across the country compare to direct light rail connections to the airport?
Yes, and one of the exciting things about APM systems is the service frequency times. The reason that airports tend to use APMs is, well, there's really two reasons. The vehicle configuration, because you have that airport friendly thing that you can roll right on and off with. And then the big one is service frequency. The APM systems, you can get them to operate every 2 to 4 minutes, which means, if you get to Santa Fe Depot and either by, somebody drops you off, you get off a bus, get off a trolley, Amtrak, whatever, you go up to that APM platform, every 2 to 4 minutes, another vehicle shows up, you roll on, you're at the airport in 7, 8 minutes, right into the terminals. So, with other technologies, whether that's bus or trolley, the fastest frequency that we felt could be operationally sustained with a trolley connection would be about every 15 minutes. And that 15-minute service level would still be dependent upon operations of the greater trolley system. So if there is an issue somewhere else in the system, that ripples through the rest of the system and would impact that airport connection. Whereas an APM system would be independent. Every 2 to 4 minutes, you'd have that reliability where there's a vehicle right on its heels. So I think that's something that in the airport context, a traveler trying to make a flight on time, really psychologically needs that confidence that they're going to get to the airport on time.
All right, just one last question.
Okay.
And then as far as the southern alignment, the right of way is kind of constrained there, right? Heading towards the convention center. I know, the trolley runs through there, actually just a green line at the moment. And then in addition, Coaster will be serving a convention center platform. And then there's also the bike infrastructure there.
Yeah.
How does that work with the right of way that currently exists there?
I mean, you're not wrong. It's sticky. There's that's common with all of these projects. I mean, you're always trying to squeeze stuff through to make maximum use of that available space. We've only studied this to the 1 to 3% level. We know we can do it, but it will be a challenge to, make everything work together to find, that, station and platform space to not interfere with those other uses already happening and to really get it all in there. And it's something when we get into the environmental phase, we want to do a lot more work on.
Good. Okay. Yes.
Just one quick question. Given the relatively low cost of the enhanced bus, is it possible that could be done as a near-term solution as a bridge to one of the others?
What we found is that the bus, the bus does some good things. Like you said, it's relatively inexpensive. Improving that bus service, I think could be, that bus service already exists, so it is a near-term solution already. Could we make it better for relatively low cost? Yeah, but it would require that conversion of general purpose lanes to really speed it up at all. And that's always a tough thing to do, to take a road that everybody's used to being able to use and then say, no, that's only for buses. So that's kind of a trade-off. But, there's also a symbiosis between a improved bus network and an APM system like this, even as a feeder. So absolutely, as we continue, we'd like to, continue to figure out the best ways to get people there today and, to really maximize the value of maybe a larger investment in APM or other transit connection.
Okay, Anna.
Thank you for the presentation. That was really great and gave me a lot to think about. I think my questions are probably things that are best addressed to the environmental process, but my initial thoughts were similar to the counties. Is it possible to do both the bus and the APM? Because it seems that the APM really serves visitors to the region, and that the bus service might serve residents and employees in the region. So just wanted to think about that. And then the other question I had was about the local roadway impacts. We see a lot of impact of the trolley to Naval Base San Diego access because our main access to the main gate is at 32nd Street, where there's also a trolley station. So would wonder if we would see increased gate downtime as a result of the trolley concept. No need to answer the question. Those were just kind of my initial thoughts on the overall project. Thank you.
Jose.
Actually, one more question. Has there been a consideration of a sixth concept that basically, or sorry, an additional concept 6 kind of, you mentioned the at-grade crossings, and then you showed the low capital cost for the trolley option versus the APM options. Those at-grade crossings, if they were to be added, removing them to this project, has that been considered?
Eliminating at-grade crossings is always great. That helps the system in many, many ways. We really studied how to get a transit connection to the airport. I think, that's the near medium term goal, is to deliver that solution and resource to the region. The existing system and those at-grade crossings is something that as an agency, we're going to be looking at for a long time, trying to figure out how to improve the overall efficiency of our existing trolley, rail, transit systems. But the catch is those are, deeply urban at-grade crossings. And so, eliminating those crossings, you could put the rail in a tunnel. That's an option, but very expensive, but could be done. Very complicated. You can try to, bring the road down. There's just no real easy way to do that. But it's important. It would, we don't want to lose our, sight of that, but it's not an easy task to do.
Brian, ultimately, once this is built, let's say the southern leg APM option is selected, which agency would be responsible for managing, operating, and maintaining it?
That's a great question. We've been working with our partners at North County Transit District, with the MTS, talking about, how to create the connection. We certainly, if this is the direction that the region decides to take with an APM system, obviously MTS would run a trolley. We would continue talking with MTS to see if that would be something they would operate. But that's a good question. It's something we need to continue working on, figure out what we want to do, and then, find the right, entity to operate it.
I think before we get too far down the road, that discussion should happen as part of the early things, so that whichever agency is selected, it isn't a surprise and
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for a great presentation. Certainly information we're all excited to hear about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. That was informational only, no vote needed. We're going to move on to item number 6. Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation Program, OLDCC, Assistance Overview. And Mary Beth Greiner is going to present to us.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for letting me come and speak with you all today. I'm Mary Beth Greiner. I'm a project manager with the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. I reached out to April after listening in on the session last May, and just wanted to come in and provide a more broad overview of all of our programs. I know several of the military installations that are part of the working group have had projects with us, as well as a number of the member agencies, but there's also been a number of new faces around the table. So just kind of wanted to bring everybody up to speed on all of our different programs. To that end, also, we've significantly expanded our Western Region office. We're now led by Lewis Littleton. We are still a part of the headquarters that's back in DC. But we've significantly staffed up our office. So I'm also here on behalf of our office, trying to do a little bit more public outreach and getting our information out to the communities. So first and foremost, one thing our director, Mr. Patrick O'Brien, likes us to share is that we are one community. We work with the local installations, the local jurisdictions, states, tribes, other divisions of government to make sure that the military and the community can exist copacetically. We help with any encroachment concerns. We also have a number of programs that help with the military industrial base as well. But it's a really big emphasis for our director that we talk about being one community. You know, our service members and their families reside in the community, and many of the community members work on the installation. So everybody's impacted by each other. The Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, or OLDCC, was founded in 1961 under Secretary McNamara. He took a lot of his experience with Ford Motor Company to the DoD when he saw how dependent some communities can get when they are reliant on a specific industry. And so he came up with the Office of Economic Adjustment, our prior name, to help communities respond to decreases in federal funding. So previously, we were very focused on helping communities revitalize after BRAC closures. We have since refocused and expanded to supporting states, territories, and communities that have a vested interest in the defense mission, whether that be by supporting an actual installation or supporting some component of the defense industrial base. Just briefly, for our mission statement, OLDCC enables states, territories, and communities to plan and carry out civilian responses to workforce, business, and community needs arising from defense actions and policies. We cooperate with the military installations and leverage public and private capabilities to deliver public infrastructure and services to enhance the military mission, achieve facility and infrastructure savings, as well as reduce operating costs, and increase military and civilian and industrial readiness and resilience and support military families. This is a high-level overview of our FY23 projections. Our programs are divided into two categories. We have our competitive programs, which are the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program, and our very popular Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program, DCIP, which funds infrastructure projects. All the other programs that are broken out into the smaller donut are considered our core programs, and those are all eligibility based, which means that if either the community or the installation reaches out to us, we can begin to work with you on developing a project application to seek funding pending appropriations for each fiscal year. One thing that is very unique that I'd like to emphasize for the community members here is that unlike many grant programs, I, as a project manager, am actually able to work with you in order to put together an application prior to bringing it to our director for award, if it's a part of our core programs. If it's one of the competitive programs, it's typically a two-part competition where you submit a proposal. If you are selected to be invited farther on into the competition, then you work with a project manager like myself to get your project across the finish line into the funding. I'll be covering programs that are most relevant to the working group members, but I'm happy to follow up either if there's time allows or offline on all of our other programs. Installation resilience is by far our most diverse and largest core program. It allows us to fund large projects, small projects of all scales. So we can do a really large comprehensive study of all of the installation resilience impacts on both the military installation and the community, or if you already kind of know what your resilience concerns are, we can work with you on a more focused study as well. These are all planning grants. There currently is no funding for construction of any installation resilience projects, although we do have the authority for construction. We don't have the appropriations at this time, but we can help support funding for design of projects as well, up to nearly 100%. The installation resilience projects require a 10% federal match. This is most typically seen through staff time and within the project. These projects are usually, we try to keep them to about 18 months. We've gone quite a bit over that during COVID as all of our communities kind of were managing the transition to working from home and now back to hybrid. But our goal is to be about 18 months. So what I like to do when I work with the communities is kind of understand what the staff has the time and bandwidth for, and then kind of scope the project that way along with the military input. Here's a broad overview of all of our installation resilience projects since 2018. Similar to our overall name, from Office of Economic Adjustment to Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, the Installation Resilience Program has seen a couple name changes. So you may have worked with us when we were doing joint land use studies. Then I think we had compatible use studies for a little while, compatible use plans. Now everything is just captured under installation resilience. Our director likes to say, if you are not on here, you're probably due to be on here. He likes to see things done about every 5 years. And our installation resilience grants are very much a success begets success kind of program, where you may start with a much larger, broad project, such as the one we just completed with SANDAG, and then move on to possibly doing a more specific project that's more focused in scope. The Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program is still considered a pilot program for now. There is some language to make it more of a permanent program. These projects allow us to actually fund construction-ready projects. And by construction-ready, we mean all the environmental work is done, and construction must begin within 1 year of award. Award typically happens at the end of the fiscal year, so approximately September 30th. And so you'll have to be under construction within that year, and construction has to be completed within 5 years. This project is competitive. We typically send out the initial notice for the competition in the March and April timeframe, pending lawyer inputs, of course. And then communities have the opportunity to submit a proposal. Then all the proposals are reviewed and scored, and then communities are then invited to work with the project manager to put forth their project into a full application. The competition does have some very strict criteria. So for example, the Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program does require a letter of support from the local military installation, whereas installation resilience doesn't necessarily have that same threshold or requirement. And there is a 30% match unless the location of the project, and I'll emphasize that again for SANDAG, because sitting here in the city in downtown San Diego, we're obviously not in a rural area, but if SANDAG or another agency were to put forth a project and the location were in a rural area, then the 30% match is waived. So it's not about where the applicant is, it's about where the project is. And there is no partial funding for these projects. So once all the projects are scored, they are funded based on, like, our number one project gets funded, number 2, 3, so on, until we work through whatever our appropriations are that year. If we get to project number 23 and we only have $1.5 million left and your project is $2 million, we move on to the next project. Our community noise mitigation program is going to be our newest program. It's currently out for public comment. This will be a program, a competitive program as well, where we'll be able to fund installation of noise mitigation on covered facilities, such as hospitals, schools, daycare centers, and senior centers. The funds will be obligated prior to September 30th, 2025, and they must be spent within 5 years. Again, this is currently out for a 60-day comment period. If you go to our website, you'll see right at the top, there's an opportunity for public comment. You can also reach out to our program activity lead, Scott Spencer. We hope to publish the notice of funding before the end of this fiscal year so that we can run the competition early next year with awards sometime in the spring. So some key takeaways that I would like to share with the group is that OLDCC has unique authorities to help the community better support the community and protect the military mission in San Diego. We're a resource to look at ideas that can mutually support the installation and surrounding communities. We, again, expect some sort of follow-on implementation. We try not to be one and done. We try to make sure and encourage the continued coordination between the community and the installations, much like this group does. Grants should have a single sponsor that is an instrument of state or local government, but many can contribute to the project. And one thing I did forget to mention as far as installation resilience is there are two ways to put forth an installation resilience project. On an annual basis, we put out a request through the services to nominate projects themselves, whereby the installations are able to submit a project for consideration. Those are then evaluated and project managers are assigned. But since there are many members of the community here, you all can it's as simple as sending an email with kind of an outline of what you would like to do. Obviously, it's helpful if you've coordinated with the installation first, because that's the very first phone call that we're going to make is calling the installation to make sure that they think this is a viable project. But with installation resilience, you don't have to wait for that annual call for nominations from the services. So that's all I have at this time. If there are any questions, or I can go over some of our other programs.
Okay, Mary Beth, thank you. Before we get to questions or comments from members, let's check and see if there's any from the public.
Thank you, Chair. There are no public comments on item 6.
Okay, questions or comments from members? I've got a couple, but I'll come back to you. The slides that we're looking at today, these are available on the SANDAG website. So if you were to do a Google search of SANDAG Military Working Group, it would probably take you to the page that would supporting materials. Here it is on the agenda also. So whether you look for the agenda or the meetings and agendas, you'll find this slide deck already on the website for archiving purpose and informational. So hopefully you didn't have to copy everything down at light speed to know who to contact on things. Are there any key dates in the next 6 months for the people here? Deadlines for application or any key dates?
The key date, I don't have exact dates, but one thing to be keeping an eye on is when we'll be announcing the competition for the community noise mitigation program. We have to finish the public comment period before we can release the NOFO. So not exactly sure when that's going to be, but sometime this late fall, early next year.
But what's the name of that program again?
Community noise mitigation program.
Okay, so that's one that members want to follow as well.
Yes.
Okay, questions? Tony.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. My question was about the maximum funding amounts for the grant programs for the community noise mitigation and the DSIP. Are there maximum amounts that are awarded?
I'm not aware of how we're going to classify community noise mitigation yet. And for DSIP, I don't recall, but some of them can get pretty spendy. If there are hard limits, it's definitely on the website. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I feel lucky that we have you as a point of contact at Old CC since you're so familiar with our region. I had 2 questions. One for the population. If a community is in a metropolitan area, do they still count as being within the 100,000? So for example, a community like National City or Coronado, would they meet that criteria?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure.
Okay,
Most of those rural projects would be something that's like out, like Yuma Proving Ground, for example.
Okay, so the goal is for it to be rural, and if it's part of a metropolitan area, it might not meet that criteria. And then the other question I had was, does Old CC rank projects higher if they are in a sentinel landscape?
No.
Okay.
Darn.
All right. Thank you.
No, but we can help fund some of the planning work for the sentinel landscape.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Good. Okay, Mary Beth, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Okay, that was informational only, no actions needed. Moving on to item number 7, National City Installation Resiliency Study. This was one of the things that was recently funded through the OLDCC, the National City Installation Resiliency Study. It built upon the work our military working group started with the military multimodal access strategy, the Harbor Drive multimodal corridor study, and the Naval Base San Diego parking and traffic congestion relief plan. So we're now going to hear from Tom Bertulis. Did I say your last name right?
You did.
Okay,
Nice.
KTUA Planning and Landscape Architecture. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. I was my second time presenting here. I see some familiar faces and some new faces. So there'll be some recap of my last presentation, which was in May, the exact same topic. So yeah, I'm Tom Bertulis from KTUA. I should say we're doing this project with Kimley Horn, and Amy Jackson from Kimley Horn is in the last row back there. I probably should have put the Kimley Horn logo up there. Slight oversight, sorry. So this is a few slides on a recap of the last May when we presented. The grant was received by the City of National City. They spearheaded the project in partnership with Navy Base San Diego. Yachi from Navy Base San Diego is here in the audience. She's the rep from there. And we're collaborating with both National City and the City of San Diego. It's funded by OLDCC, so that's convenient that we just had a presentation. So thank you, Mary Beth, for funding this project. So another recap, we're looking at coordination and collaboration and building consensus on priorities that address transportation, traffic, and parking needs around Navy Base San Diego. We're presenting to this group. This is an informational presentation today. And the point is that the policy committee for the City of National City is making the final recommendations. So the policy committee is the mayor of National City, the public works director, and the Navy base rep, which is Yachi here. So we've been meeting with them on a regular basis and getting input on this. And this is, you'll see there's a lot of preliminary concepts here, but nothing's been etched in stone just yet. So we finished with the ranking of the projects. We're currently looking at traffic analysis and design drawings. And we did get an extension till the end of the year. Thank you, Mary Beth. By then, we plan to have a final plan completed and a presentation to the City Council for National City. The study area, as you saw last time, it's west of National City Boulevard in National City, and then a little bit in San Diego, sort of the southwest part of San Diego, basically the frontage along the Navy base there. The other key thing about this is all the fatalities and serious injuries and other injuries. We definitely looked at those carefully. The one with the most injury collisions for National City, the project was Bamlina Drive along the south. The one in San Diego with the most injury collisions, Main Street, those rose to the top pretty quickly. We'll talk about those later. So we looked at a lot of plans. So it's kind of a key point that we didn't create any new projects. We just researched a lot of existing planning documents and identified close to 180 projects, as you see there. And then it's a matter of prioritizing and ranking those. Like, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. How do you determine that criteria to rank projects? Well, we looked at these 5 main criteria, along with a lot of input from stakeholders in the policy committee. So density of collisions, especially fatalities and serious injuries. We saw something like 1 fatality every 2 years in this area, so relatively high. Average peak period congestion, proximity to Navy-based gates, strawnet corridors, I'm sure you'll be interested in that, connections to freeways, connections to transit, all this was really important, pedestrian quality of facilities, and finally, level of traffic stress. These are national accepted criteria. So we're currently doing analysis using Synchro of these projects, as well as developing CAD drawings of a handful, not all of them, just a handful of the projects as we work to develop the final report. We have 3 levels. At the highest level, these are 30% designs that are grant ready, right? So we're setting ourselves up for grants where we can do first final design and then get construction funding. This is a key part of that. Some of them are more concept level, just very preliminary concept level designs. And finally, there's level 3, just listing considerations for future implementation. So we, as mentioned, reviewed somewhere close to 180 projects, and then we filtered down to a lot smaller number, which I'll go into in further slides and use the criteria that I mentioned. A lot of the corridors have been identified and existing projects have really been developed, either designed or funded. Right after this presentation, there's going to be a presentation from Caltrans on Harbor 2.0, Harbor Drive 2.0, and the Vesta Street Bridge. Those are two projects that were identified, but of course, because they're so moving along, we're not touching them, but we're including them, right? So we're building into them. We've made some assumptions. Hopefully they're going to be done. I don't know, maybe Caltrans will let me know, but 2030 or so, and all our projects will probably come after that. So we'll build into our projects. We'll talk about which projects we've identified. So this slide I'll probably spend the most time on for my whole presentation. More than any other slide, I'll kind of talk about these 6 projects that we're focusing on right now. Main Street from Vesta to Division Street, we're looking at intersection and roadway capacity improvements. There's other projects that we're tying into. So the Roosevelt Avenue project, which also KTUA collaborated with Kimberly Horn on, we were tying into that division at Roosevelt is a complicated intersection. The fact that the Vesta Street Bridge is going in, thanks to Caltrans, we've had to make all kinds of assumptions with traffic circulation patterns changing in that area. So there's a lot that goes into these projects, even on this very conceptual level. Next project, number 2, the 8th Street Transit Center. That one was definitely the one that the City of National City said, look, focus on this one first and foremost before anything else. We're very interested in the 8th Street Transit Center, new parking structure, new pedestrian gate to the dry side. Not one, but 2 bridges. One bridge over Harbor Drive, going to the west from the 8th Street Transit Center. One bridge going north. It's called the 7th Street Channel. It's also called Paletta Creek. Those are complicated. We're just in the preliminary stages. And the one going to the west over Harbor Drive, we've looked at that from sort of every angle, come up with 3 alternatives. We have to meet ADA, make sure it's wheelchair friendly, but there's very limited right of way when we're plopping up from a national city, the transit center, and then plopping down into Navy Base San Diego right of way. We're looking at 2 spiral ramps and 1 pedestrian ramp that has a switchback, but then we reached out to Yachi and she said, well, try not to take too much of the road or maybe none of the road. It's getting complicated to try to balance ADA needs with not taking too much right away from the roadway. It may or may not be feasible. We're still seeing, but there's a lot to sort of deal with right there. So yeah, that's the 8th Street Transit Center. Number 3, Civic Center Drive. This is a project where I have a couple slides on later in this presentation, so I won't talk about this one too much. It's a bicycle connection between other projects. It's a very small project, I will say that. Number 4, 19th Street, multimodal intersection capacity improvements. Amy from Kimberly Horn and her colleagues has spent a lot of time on that. They've gone out, they've done reconnaissance, they've done analysis. In the morning to get onto the Navy base, a lot of people use 19th Street, so there's a lot of congestion issues. As we know, I don't have to tell you, you're the experts, you know this better than me, but we're trying to balance all these issues. There's another project done by a different consultant, 19th and 18th under I-5, where the closing part of one of the lanes is becoming a bike pedway and the other lanes for cars, so we're tying into that. And we're trying to make all modes safer and work a lot better. Number 5, National City Boulevard. It is relatively far from Navy Base, so the National City Boulevard project got bumped down from level 1 to level 2. It's just some very basic safety improvements and signal timing changes, but more on the 10% level rather than the 30% level. And finally, number 6, Bay Marina Drive, Mile of Cars. This is another project where I have a couple slides on coming up, so I won't talk about too much more here. Just to say it's a multimodal improvement project, big safety focus there. So I only have, after this, 4 slides left. So we're at the end of my presentation. And oh, it looks like part of my slide's not appearing. I'm not sure what happened there. But so these 4 slides, I have 2 slides on Civic Center Drive and 2 slides on Bay Marina Drive, and I'll just jump right into it. So Civic Center Drive is a very short project. It's only 300 feet. And you can see on the left where it's located at the base of Harbor Drive there. It's basically a class 4 bike lane connector between the Bayshore Bikeway and Harbor Drive. And that's basically it. It's going to be on the north side of the street. I can show you on the next slide. You can see how short it is. It's just a little tiny little 300-foot bikeway connector. Again, we put preliminary concept in big letters because this is sort of hot off the press, and we're still getting more input, and it may change. But and there's, I have to say a big challenge with this is there's a lot of consultants working on a lot of projects. I think we've identified at least 3 or 4. And so a lot of this is emailing, and can we have these plans, and how are they going to connect? And, this is probably going to get built after 2030, right? After Harbor Drive 2.0 gets built. So once we get those final plans, then we can make sure we connect into those. So it's a lot of coordination and collaborating at this early level. So last but not least, Bay Marina Drive. This, as I mentioned in the beginning, did have the highest number of injury collisions of any of the projects we studied in National City. So it rose to the top. You can see there the average daily traffic is 24,000 ADT. So relatively high for this roadway. We're limited in terms of taking space away from motor vehicles, so we had to get a little more creative. Ideally, what we're doing is just channelizing the traffic, slowing the speeds, especially at the turns. We have all been on a freeway on-ramp, and we know how we can, there's I-5 right there, we can whip onto I-5. So if we can slow down speeds with reduce curb radii, with hardened center lines, which is a fancy way of saying these flex posts attached to a plastic center line, but not the ones that fall apart and you see in the roadway, the ones that are durable and won't become a maintenance hassle for public works. So these are some of the concepts we're looking at for this. My last slide, big letters, preliminary concept. Again, this is not etched in stone, but we're also looking at truck aprons. City of Encinitas on Birmingham Drive on I-5 southbound got a truck apron, and National Cities looks to be set to get several more. It really allows the trucks to make the turns, these large trucks to make these wide turns while slowing the motor vehicles, which really can help safety for all users of the roadway. So I sometimes go to communities and say, don't worry, no parking was harmed in the making of this project. So for this board, I'll just say, don't worry, no travel lanes were harmed in the making of this project. So that will assuage some fears in some cases. So that's my presentation. Myself and my colleagues will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks for a great presentation. I did see the Kimley Horn logo on one of those slides. So we got one in there, and there's some airtime there.
Okay,
before we go to member comments and questions, let's see if there's anything from the public.
There are no public comments on item 7.
Okay, member comments or questions? Yes.
Hey. I noticed that the 8th Street trolley was one of the priority locations, which is great to see, but I was surprised not to see the new Frank project listed as an existing project. So I just wanted to see how that project was being considered.
Sorry, which project?
Frank.
Is that the one with the neighborhood electric vehicles?
Yes.
Yeah, we were including that. I had to cut some of my slides. Yeah, so we at KQA were actually doing that, and it's right next to the trolley station. Yeah, no, we're including that. I just didn't have room in my slides to include it.
Okay, it might be, the City of National City is not here, so it might be worth, if you're working on that project, kind of just maybe giving a brief summary of that project for everyone.
Yeah, so I'm not personally working on it, but some of my colleagues are at the company I work for, so I don't know all the details. But there's a neighborhood electric vehicle charging station going at the trolley station there. So they're cutting out some of the right of way there. And there's a plan to have these NEVs, these little, I call them golf carts on steroids. You see some of them running around sometimes, to have like an NEV track. And actually it will probably run around very close to the Yama Street entrance for the Navy base there. But this like this little NEV route is in the conceptual phases now, and then they could be charged there at the transit station. So it's kind of an exciting little project, but how's that?
Yeah, just good. I think it is getting ready to launch, I believe. I'm not sure the exact date, but I want to say it's this week. And so I think it's going to be very similar to the Fred service here in downtown. People can just book a ride on the app and you'll be able to, it's called Frank Free Ride Anywhere National City. So they will be able to go anywhere in National City on those little golf carts, which includes at least one of the Naval Base San Diego gates. I think it's gate 9. And again, I don't know sorry, it's not my project. It's actually City of National City, but I believe it launches this week.
I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure of the launch, so thank you.
Okay, other comments, questions?
That's curious what you said.
Well, this was a grant from the OLDCC. So Mary Beth, thank you. Nice to have you here to say thank you in person from all of us. I think it allows us to better collaborate between state and local governments and the military installations. And this is clearly a very deep dive into some things that can make it safer to get people to the military installations, either directly affects their safety or indirectly by helping the community, allowing the employees to get to the base more safely. So I think that's a great project, even though it doesn't necessarily touch the base directly, it's helping the entire region. This also has applicability to Camp Pendleton, even in North County. If you see of similar kind of needs where, hey, if we could reduce congestion in this area or streamline this, MCRD, the traffic along there. So don't, just because we heard about South Bay, don't rule out things going up to Camp Pendleton that, hey, we could make it easier and safer for everybody if we did this kind of a thing. So keep your mind open on that one. Okay, thank you very much, Tom, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll move us on to, I guess, our last presentation, the Harbor Drive 2.0 Vesta Bridge Port Access Improvements. Jose Luis Robles from Caltrans and Andrea Hoff from SANDAG are going to present on this one. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having us this morning. I would like to introduce Andrea Hoff from SANDAG. She's a project manager collaborating with us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and we also have Annabelle Valencia. She's a design manager from Caltrans. And in this project, we've been collaborating together with SANDAG and the Port and the Navy to make this project successful. And so thank you for having us here today. I believe this project was presented earlier, and we're here to just provide you an update of where we're at and where the project's can move within the next few months and upcoming years. We're going to start the presentation with Andrea Hoff presenting the first half of the presentation, and then we'll move it over to my side.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for your attention. This is an exciting project that has been in the works for quite some time. It's a collaboration between SANDAG, Caltrans, and other agencies as well, including Navy Base San Diego, the Port of San Diego, and the cities of National City and San Diego. Purpose today, as Jose Luis mentioned, is to provide you an update. Your last update on this project was in May of last year, so our intention today is not to rehash the entire project and its goals and purpose and elements, but to just remind you briefly of what it consists of and then provide you an update on what we've done since that update, since that presentation in May. So this one slide will serve as a reminder of the components of the project. You're looking at the working waterfront, which you are all familiar with. The first major component of this project is dedicated truck lanes and managed truck lanes along Harbor Drive and intelligent transportation system improvements like overhead gantries, changeable message signs in order to enable quick and efficient movement of trucks along Harbor Drive between the two marine terminals. So a major goal of this project is to facilitate goods movement from our critical strategic port of San Diego and throughout the working waterfront. There will also be freight queue jumps, which are sort of like those traffic signals that allow the bus to jump ahead of other traffic, except in this case, we're looking at allowing the trucks to have a queue jump. Brand new traffic signals and other wayfinding control gantries, and that's just another way of saying directional signage. In addition, we are looking at a bridge over Harbor Drive connecting the wet and dry sides of Naval Base San Diego. This bridge will facilitate the movement of base personnel across Harbor Drive without having to exit and re-enter again, in addition to lifting a lot of the traffic off Harbor Drive to help improve the flow of trucks and other vehicles on Harbor Drive. In addition, there are some smaller operational improvements included with both projects, and this is a summary. There's a ramp widening connecting to the State Route 15, some rehabilitation of pavement at various locations, potentially a right turn onto Navy Base San Diego. And in sum, those are sort of the elements of this project. One of the exciting things about this project in particular is that it responds to some of the community concerns. Barrio Logan, as you know, is often faced with truck traffic going through their residential areas from the port, and Harbor Drive is the designated truck route. So we're really trying to incentivize the trucks to use the designated truck route to access the state freeway system. We're currently in the environmental process, looking to complete the environmental document at the end of this year. This illustrates the steps in that process, and you'll see the gold star located kind of where we're at this moment. The purpose and need and alternatives have been analyzed, various technical studies. Jose Luis will dive into a bit more detail about those. And we're preparing for a public hearing and public review of that environmental document. It's very important that we finish that document before the end of the year, because a large grant that we received from the state of California called the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program awarded $18.5 million for both Vesta and Harbor. And that's contingent upon our completion of the environmental document before the end of the year. With that, I'll turn it over to Jose Luis to continue with some further details.
Thank you, Andrea. Let's dive into the details here. High level schedule right now. Actually, it's pretty detailed. The project initiation document was completed back in August of 22nd. Our next milestone is going to be the draft environmental document prior to the releasing of the document for the 30-day relief hearing period, public hearing period. That's going to put us into where we want to complete the project approval and the final environmental document in December. As Andrea spoke earlier, that is a milestone we have to reach because our grant really counts on that milestone being completed. Once that is completed, our goal is to begin the design primarily for Vesta in the spring and hopefully for Harbor 2.0 as well. Begin construction in the year 2026, and it's a 3-year construction period that takes us all the way to 2029. Okay, the status of the environmental studies. Currently, right now, we have both of these projects. We're clearing it with one single environmental document. It's an environmental assessment under NEPA and initial study under CEQA. We have completed the community impact assessment, the visual impact assessment studies, the cultural studies, and the biology studies. The 2 pending studies that we have that are left to be completed is the air quality study and the noise study. And these studies were dependent on our traffic study where we're getting close to completing soon. So we're thinking that these studies are going to be completed within the next few weeks. Okay, status of funding. We have received some funding for both of these projects. After the environmental study is completed, both of the projects are going to go into their separate ways. We're currently in the PNED phase, which is already funded. The design phase was funded through the TCEP grant. For the Vesta project, we were allotted $6.5 million. For the design, there's a huge right-of-way component on that project. There's a lot of utilities around the area. And so we were also allotted $6.7 million for the utility right-of-way component of that project. And for the support, the soft cost, we were granted $1 million. Currently, the construction phase and support phase is not funded. For the Harbor 2.0, we were granted $6.5 million for the design component of the project. PNED is currently being worked on. Both the PNED phases for both Vesta and Harbor were CBI funded cross-border infrastructure funds. We are currently working together with the port, with SANDAG and ourselves, pursuing grant opportunities for the right-of-way component of Harbor 2.0 in the amount of $11 million. We've submitted a grant application that hopefully we hear back in November from the reduction of truck emissions port facilities. RTEP is the acronym for that. And we're going to be also applying for Reconnecting Communities Neighborhoods Program for $11 million, just in case we're not successful for the November grant. And we're also going to be pursuing future grants for the construction. So one of the reasons we're here is to ask for your support. Okay, there's a lot of activity happening in that area. We've been coordinating with different projects. The Bayshore Bikeway, which is occurring currently, it's a SANDAG project. We're working with them. The Chollas Creek to Bayshore project, City of San Diego, which is looking to connect Chollas Creek to the Bayshore Bikeway project. The National City Old DCC Resilience Study, which was presented prior to our presentation, working with the City of National City. So also the McAllen Switching Station Replacement Project, which is a project being constructed within the Navy facility. It's really close to the bridge, Vesta Bridge project that we're trying to implement. So we've been exchanging information with them. We're also coordinating with the Barrio Logan Linear Park project, which is a Caltrans Clean California project, and also various planning studies that SANDAG is conducting. Upcoming key dates, October 16th is the release when we're going to finalize our draft environmental document. We're going to be releasing the document for public comment, and the comment period is 30 days. There's a planned public meeting, November 2nd. That's our tentative day as of today. It's going to be conducted in Barrio Logan. And then we plan to conclude our project approval environmental document phase December 29th of 2023. Okay, our next steps is going to be trying to initiate our design phase, which is going to require more partnering with agencies such as the Port, the Navy, City of San Diego, and all the remaining partners, MTS. We plan to begin the design and the dialogue for utility relocation in April of 2024. And that's primarily for Vesta. Agreements for Harbor 2.0 is scheduled to begin in the fall. If we have the opportunity to begin earlier, we will. But right now, since we don't have funding for right away, it's going to be important for us to kind of be successful on those applications to be able to start earlier. Thank you for the time, and if we're open for questions.
Sounds good. Okay, before we get to member comments or questions, let's check and see if anybody in the public wants to weigh in.
Thank you, Chair. There are no public comments on item 8.
Okay, pretty easy day in terms of public comments on this. Any member comments? Anna, this seems like a great way to kind of reduce congestion on local roads and better for mission readiness. I bet this is something you're looking forward to.
Yeah, this is a very exciting project, and thank you for coordinating with the Navy on it.
And you could, for JJ Jim, you could see we're talking 5-6 years away from constructing this thing. So get in the queue, man. If you've got something that you think will smooth traffic out in a bridge here or something there. So get in the queue, get in the queue. Any other comments, questions on this? All right. Thank you both for the presentation. Informational only, no action needed on that one. That takes us to our final item. Number 9, upcoming meeting. Our next scheduled meeting of this group is December 4th, 2023. That's probably a Monday still, I assume. So Monday, December 4th at 9 a.m. right here. And there's also a regional plan joint working group forum on Thursday, December 7th. This is at your opportunity to weigh in on the regional plan from the military point of view, if you want anything included there. That one's at 10 a.m. More details will be sent out to you automatically anyway. Okay, I think that covers our time today. We're done 15 minutes early. Everybody likes a meeting that ends early, so it gives you time to catch up on whatever you need to catch up on. So thanks for making the trip downtown here today and for your comments, questions, and I'll call this meeting adjourned. Have a great rest of your day.